Tonight we've got a headphone special. We're going to be looking at the Rolls-Royce in the headphone world, the new T+A Solitaire P Headphones and the HA200 Headphone Amplifier. I'm delighted to be joined by Max Kirsch, one of the members of the team behind the design of the Solitaire P headphones. Lothar Wyman, head of R&D at T+A, and their head of marketing, Konrad Idumpf, along with the man who reviews for so many different publications, too many to mention, Ed Selley. Hi gentlemen, how are you doing?
Hi Steve, I'm doing fine, how are you?
Good, good. And Ed, are you well?
Yes, I'm not so bad. Other than a desperate desire to go to the pub after 9 weeks of this, yes, I can't complain. So
yes, and once we've got through this, there'll be a good opportunity, I'm sure.
For a week or so, I think should cover it.
So we're here to talk about the new T+A Solitaire P headphones and the new HA200 amplifier. There's a big history behind T+A. The company's been going for some 40 years. I had the pleasure of visiting the factory. I have a feeling that at the time that I actually came to the factory, I think you were probably working on the headphones then. So it's quite good for me now to be in a position where I've got and had some time with the headphones and the headphone amplifier to sort of see where things have sort of come from. Max, I wonder if I could start with you and ask you how long the development has taken.
The headphone development actually started in about March 2019, which is now, let's say, over a year ago. And also it's the same time when I was starting in the company. So my main development goal starting here was developing this headphone.
And I think T+A's got quite a big R&D team. I think they're around 12 of you.
Actually, we are 15 people here working in R&D, working on software, hardware, and signal processing, construction, and also acoustics, of course.
And there were 4 of you that worked on the headphone project.
Yes, we are 4 people working on headphone projects right now. You have people working in the acoustics, you have people working at the construction, of course, which is our dear colleague, Mr. Cobalt. Then you have the design of the headphone itself, ergonomics, and the production itself. So also Mr. Amft, our chief of the company, is working on looking on foils and so on. We are looking for suppliers. So there's a lot of effort going into the production because they're all handmade here in the company.
The headphones use planar magnetic technology?
Yes, we are using planar magnetic technology here for a pretty certain reason. So we were thinking, okay, which driver you should use? And of course, the first idea is to use a standard electrodynamic transducer with the voice coil. But the thing with the electrodynamic transducer is the size. So you're a little bit limited on the size because you mostly have to use a round shape, a circular shape.
The headphones have got a very good sound stage, so I guess that's adding to the sound stage.
This is completely right, yes. We are using this technology, planar magnetic, because it combines the advantages of an electrostatic transducer, which has also this big membrane working for you, but you can use a planar magnetic transducer and a standard headphone amplifier, which is used for standard electromagnetic transducers.
T+A are quite late to the market in terms of headphones, and it's quite a crowded marketplace. Having had a listen to the headphones, how do you think they compare with the competition?
It's a fairly rarefied end of the market, no question. But everything that I've done with the samples here suggests that all of the basics are absolutely nailed. And when I say that, it's all well and good us talking about big planar drivers and all the rest and the technology, but we have a relationship with headphones that we don't have with many other items of hi-fi. And when I say the basics, they are extremely comfortable to wear. The weight distribution is perfect. The cable doesn't collide with my glasses, my ears, all of the things that when you have spent this not inconsequential sum of money, they need to be right. And every single one of the things that will matter as to how much you want to be using these products 6 months, a year down the line, every single one of those things for me is exceptionally well thought out. And that's always the hardest bit when you start from a clean sheet of paper with headphones, because you don't have the accrued decades of your customers feeding back going, this worked, this didn't work. I am genuinely impressed at just how pleasurable they are to use and live with. And then that is the perfect step-off point to enjoy the performance, which is, by all counts, exceptional. Planar magnetic headphones, the advantages are relatively clear cut. They're easy enough to describe. It often comes with downsides. The sensitivity can be problematic. There can be limitations to the bass extension. Obviously, the Solitaires are going to do their best work with a headphone amplifier of commensurate quality, which is why T+A has gone and made one. But it has to be said, for a headphone in this category, they are extremely user-friendly, and the bass response for an open-backed planar magnetic headphone is absolutely fantastic. Cannot get enough of that.
I know as dealers and reviewers, we all come up with these different words to describe how we feel when we're listening to systems. But with the Solitaires, I just found they were incredibly involving. I put them on the first evening. I put them on. I think I stayed up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because I found I really was hearing instruments in a different way to how I've been used to. And I also found the headphones just to be tireless. I put them on. I was happy wearing them. They were comfortable. They've got Alcantara pads, so you don't sweat under the when you're wearing them. They also come with a good length lead. Several manufacturers, they don't put particularly long cables on their headphones, and this comes with a generous cable. And over the past couple of weeks, I've listened to the headphones with the HA200 amplifier. I've listened direct from a streamer, and I sometimes use one of these little Bluetooth adapters, which is the latest Bluetooth, and there's a 3.5mm jack in there, so I put an adapter lead in, and I listen to the headphones through here as well, and I was really surprised that something like that could drive a pair of planar magnetic headphones. But even with that, they sounded really good.
Yes, I agree. I haven't even had to switch my headphone amplifier into its high gain setting, which is normally an automatic the moment that I take delivery of a planar design. It would be a default thing to do. And I confess, the only reason I know it works fine in low gain setting is because last night I actually forgot to put it in. But it works brilliantly in that context. There's no shock and awe, for want of a better phrase. There's no have a listen to this sort of enormous. It creeps up on you a little bit, but as you say, you then find that you're a couple of hours in, you're still comfortable, you're still happy, you haven't found yourself distracted or wanting to nudge the volume down, or any of the normal sort of warnings is the wrong word, any of the normal sort of points that would sort of demonstrate that things weren't all they could be. And it's always a gamble for manufacturers, because shock and awe can be sort of useful. As you as a dealer will know, there are certain occasions when grabbing the customer's attention is ideal for the customer then leaving the store with the product. But this isn't that. It's good after 5 minutes, unbelievable after 60 minutes, and then after 2 hours you're working out what part of your organs you can sell to have a pair of your own. So that's the way that that's the way it should be, but it isn't always the way it is, and it's deeply impressive.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of products out there that do that, have that initial impression, and you think, oh, that sounds good, and then after half an hour or an hour you're starting to tire of that sound. But I just found these incredibly smooth and just very revealing. We touched on price. £5,000 isn't an inconsiderable amount of money. Do you feel that they represent good value when you look at the other headphones out there in the marketplace with the competition?
Yes, if we separate the question slightly, it is an unavoidably large sum of money for a pair of headphones. However, based on other devices I've listened to at or around this price, they are extremely competitive, and they are more comfortable than almost any of the other variations I've tried at this price point. The level of fit and finish, again, it's not overt, it's not showy, it's not look at me sort of things, but they are exquisitely well made. Absolutely all of the detailing is exact, quite what we all have slightly different expectations of, I guess, what we imagine we're going to get for £5,000. But you can, the moment that you start extracting them from the box, you can see and feel where the expenditure has gone. Everything feels like it's built largely to last forever. So I feel that within the very specialist end of the market that £5,000 headphones unavoidably are, I feel that they are more than competitive with the other designs out there.
Max, the cables that come with the headphones, you've got the standard, what we say over here, a 1/4-inch jack, which is 6.3mm jack. You've also gone with a Pentagon connector as well.
Yes, of course. So the Solitaire P is always shipping with 2 cables. Firstly, you have the 6.3mm headphone jack, which I think very much people know. The cables are specially made for us. The jack on the upside is directly fitting into the headphone itself, so it's not wiring out here, which is very important for us. And the second cable is a 4.4mm headphone jack, a jack which is relatively new on the market. It has 5 rings, and it's a symmetrical cable. So this means that both ear cups have 2 cables for this. So plus and minus is completely separated from each other. So this cable is actually a successor to the 6.3mm cable. The shape is smaller, so you can use it with as well with a standard headphone amplifier and also with mobile headphone amplifiers. And the materials used in this jacks are new, made so you have a better connectivity.
I've been impressed at how quickly the 4.4mm connection has started to appear across quite a range of products from a number of different manufacturers. And as you say, it does have the advantage of being a relatively compact and also quite robust connection, which is quite it's always a useful thing. It's one of those ones where it's only been, I think it's been less than 2 years since I saw my first 4.4mm connection product, and they've been coming in greater and greater quantities pretty much since that point. It would appear that the industry likes it as a connection, and it does seem to be appearing on a good wide selection of things that you can connect these two. So it makes sense from this perspective.
And Ed, in terms of the sound, I mean, I tend to listen to a lot of jazz and big band, female vocal. I think you're quite well known to be listening to 90s electronica, or would I be right?
My musical tastes have been periodically described as odd, cretinous, and totally unsuitable. But yes, I've been through a fairly wide selection of material with this. But at one point last night, again, I was listening to Afro Celt Sound System from 1997.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possibly not it shouldn't necessarily be the natural go-to sort of music for a big open back pair of planar magnetics, but they were magnificent. As I say, the bass response is exactly what's needed to make this sort of material work. It doesn't dominate. And one of the things that I would counter for my peculiar musical taste is that I will always, it does allow me to pick up on items which are less than forgiving. I mean, for every person that has a musical library of consistently well recorded and decent material, there are people who are just as keen, but through no fault of their own, their music library is nowhere near as immaculate. These are a perfect partner for that. If you give them a magnificent recording, and I've been playing about with some of the high-res material. There's a Dead Can Dance concert I use routinely for things like this. It's still simply one of the best recordings I've ever heard. Of course, they're magnificent with things like that. But then you can disappear off down a rabbit hole of things I used to listen to standing in a field, and they are fantastic. They do all of that as well. And for me, this is absolutely critical. The idea of spending my own money on something which only flattered half my collection of music is unthinkable. And these more than meet the criteria of getting everything done. They are extremely forgiving. I have to say, I even briefly watched an episode of The Simpsons on Disney Plus through these. And I don't know what the bit rate for Disney Plus is. I can't imagine it's particularly high. But again, absolutely fantastic. There's no that you can use them without fear or favor, and I think that that's hugely important in terms of how you get on with the product long term. Certainly across the I wouldn't say an inconsequential spread of genres that I've been able to try with them. Nothing stands out as being nothing stands out as good or bad. They are astonishingly even-handed at what they do, and that is hugely admirable. That's the hallmark of equipment that you want to live with and use indefinitely. And that seems hugely, that's hugely important to me. And they more than deliver on that as a concept. So I've been extremely impressed.
We've talked quite a lot about the headphones. I just wanted to talk to you, Lothar, about the HA200 amplifier, which I think is based on the HV technology.
Yeah, that's true indeed. Well, maybe a few words about HV technology as an introduction. It was about 10 years ago now that we were coming to a point where tubes were difficult to get on the market. And if you look at the history of T+A, you can find that we always produced tube amplifiers, tube preamplifiers, even tube CD and SACD players. So through all the time that T+A produced electronics, we always had tube products in our range. And this is because we love the sound of tubes, as many audiophiles do. Over the years, it has become more and more difficult to buy good quality tubes. In the 1980s, 1990s, we still could buy old stock tubes, which were produced in the 1960s or 70s. And these tubes had a very good quality because at that time, those companies who produced tubes, they really knew what they were doing. And at that time, certain raw materials that are forbidden today could be used for producing tubes. Today we may not use lead or chromium 6 and all these things, or leaded glass. Today this is all forbidden, but this leads to a situation where it's really difficult today to produce good quality tubes. And so over the years, we more and more tried to find ways to get the tubes that we were used, that we tried to find ways to get the sound that we were used from the tubes, to get this special sound from semiconductors. And it takes several measures to really get to this goal. One is, as we found out, to use very high supply rails voltages. Tubes always operate on very high voltages, like say 300 volts or so. And compared to this high rail voltage, the audio signal of, let's say, 1 or 2 volts is very, very small. So the modulation which you get from the audio signal compared to the high voltage of the supply rail is only very, very small. And so the amplifier is really able to amplify these small signals very linearly. So the higher the rail voltage, the easier it is for the amplifier to cope with the signal, with the dynamics of the signal. And also these devices operate very linear because the transfer function, which is curved, transfer functions of transistors and tubes, they are always curved. And this curvature leads to distortion in the output signal. But by applying high voltages, we stretch the transfer function, and the curvature gets less and less. And so the whole transfer function gets more linear the higher the supply voltage is. And so a high voltage always will give you a very linear amplifying stage. And the good thing is that if we have an amplifying stage which is linear by nature, we don't have to apply high amounts of feedback. And amplifiers with low feedback, in our opinion, always sound very effortless and very harmonic and very natural. And so using high voltages like with tubes and applying this technology to transistors leads to a sound image or to a sound quality as we are used from tubes.
And when you've got low feedback and low distortion, is that basically contributing to having a low noise floor? Because I certainly notice when I use the solitaires with the headphone amplifier, the noise floor, you just sort of disappeared.
Yeah, it's not the low distortion that is important here, but it's also the high supply voltages. Because we have such a high supply voltage, we can operate with higher signal amplitudes inside our amplifiers. And using higher signal amplitudes means that we get farther away from the noise floor. So higher amplitudes lead to an increased or to a higher signal to noise ratio. And this is what you hear.
The main amplifier stages in the HA200, they're single-ended construction.
Yes, this is also something which we learned from tubes. In tube amplifiers, many stages operate in single-ended construction. And using single-ended amplifying stages means that we don't have crossover distortion between positive and negative half waves. So the whole signal, the positive and the negative half wave, are amplified by the same element, by the same transistor in this case. And by using this technology, we get rid of all crossover distortion. And this also contributes to this very natural soundstage that this amplifier gives us.
And am I right in thinking you have two signal paths, one for PCM and one for DSD?
Yeah, that's right. Maybe first I should mention that the headphone amplifier, HA200, is not just a pure headphone amplifier, it's also a D2A converter. So we have analog and digital inputs on this machine, and we used, of course, our top-notch D2A conversion technology that we developed at T+A. And one very important point in our D2A technology is that we do not use the same D2A converters for PCM and DSD signals. This is because PCM and DSD signals are completely different by nature. And most D2A converters convert either PCM to DSD or DSD to PCM, and then have one converter technology to convert from digital to analog. You know, we don't like converting one signal into another, because converting from PCM to DSD or vice versa always means that we lose signal quality, we lose a little bit of information. So we try to avoid any kind of signal conversion. And this is why we treat DSD signals as pure DSD throughout the whole signal path down to the D2A converter, and we have a second signal path for the PCM signals. At the end of this signal path, we have what we call a quadruple PCM converter, which consists of 4 separate converters, which use a double differential configuration. This gives very, very good results for PCM signals. And on the DSD side, we have a so-called T+A true 1-bit converter. This converter you cannot buy as an integrated circuit. It is made of discrete components, and the reason for this is that at this time you cannot buy an integrated circuit true DSD converter. So inside the D2A converter circuits, which you can buy off the shelf, you always have some kind of signal transformation going on inside. Normally, DSD signals are converted to a low bit PCM format and then converted. And this is just the thing which we try to avoid. And this is why we built a converter from discrete components, which we can guarantee does not convert DSD in any way, and it converts the true DSD signal right from DSD to analog without touching the signal. So we can really preserve the best from each signal format by using this double converter technology and these 2 separate signal paths in our design.
Okay, and does the HA200 upsample?
Yes, PCM signals are upsampled. So we have a DSP, a digital signal processor in here, which upsamples all PCM signals to 768 kilohertz before converting them. So this is also one thing which improves the sound quality. And maybe I should mention that the upsampling process is very important for the signal quality or for the audio quality you will get from a device. And there is a standard technique for doing this, the so-called FIR filters. And this is what you normally will find in D2A converters. FIR filters are fine. They can be very easily integrated into chips, but these FIR filters have some nasty and not so nice characteristics. One thing is that these FIR filters add pre-ringing and post-ringing. So if you have an impulsive analog signal, after sending it through an FIR filter, you will get not only the impulse, but you will also see some pre-ringing before the pulse and some post-ringing after the impulse. And this is very critical because no instrument will produce sound before you hit it or you blow it. So this pre-ringing is very critical because it's unnatural, and the human ear very reacts especially to unnatural things. And pre-ringing is such an unnatural thing which we try to avoid in our oversampling process. And this is why we developed our own oversampling based on so-called Bézier polynomials. And this technology does the oversampling without adding any pre and post echoes to the signal, and so giving a very natural sound quality. This is, as I said, you can't buy it in an integrated circuit. So if you want to do such kind of oversampling, you have to employ a DSP and write your own software to do that. But T+A has a very long tradition in doing this. We came out with our first Bézier oversampling CD players. It was in 1992, so almost 30 years ago now. And through all these times, we refined this technology with more and more faster and faster DSPs arriving and more powerful DSPs arriving on the market. And so over these 30 years, we have done pretty much research in this area. And I think we have a very, very good and good sounding oversampling technology at T+A. And of course, we employed this in our HA200.
I noticed that on the rear of the amplifier, there's lots of input options. But you've also got an HDMI socket on there as well, which I was quite surprised to see.
Yeah, but it has a reason, of course. We have HDMI inputs not because we want to have anything to do and want anything to do with video signals. We know that many people have Blu-ray disc players, which also can operate as SACD players or DVD audio players. And in our days now, there is only one possibility to transport DSD signals from a player to a D2A converter, and this is via HDMI. So for those people who would like to use their Blu-ray player for playing SACDs or DVD audio, they can just connect it via HDMI to our DAC and then use the very high quality processing in our product to do the D2A conversion. The HDMI, I must say, is not as a standard in this device, it's an option. So only for those who really need it, they can order this HDMI option and, well, as I said, use their existing Blu-ray players for high quality audio.
For those people who have already invested in an expensive pair of headphones, and we can't sway them to purchase a pair of the Solitaires yet, the HA200 is tunable, so it'll work with a number of other different manufacturers' headphones. Is that right?
Yes, of course. We try to build an amplifier which is capable of driving any headphone on the market. And one thing is that, of course, the amplifier is very powerful, can deliver up to 1.5 amperes of current. in pure Class A mode. It also can deliver high signal amplitudes for headphones with high impedances. And we have one feature which is an adjustable output impedance, so that the output impedance of the amplifier can be perfectly matched to the requirements of the headphone. Not many amplifiers have such a feature, but we found that there are certain, let me say, very lucky combinations of headphone impedance and amplifier output impedance. So every headphone has something like a sweet spot where it sounds really best. And so if you construct an amplifier, you never know what headphone later on will be connected. And this is why we made the output impedance tunable, so that the user then can decide, and by listening tests, decide which output impedance really fits best for his headphone. And well, as a rule of thumb, I would start at an output impedance at around 1/5 of the headphone impedance. So if you have, for example, a 100 ohm headphone, you could start at 20 ohms output impedance for the amplifier, and then try to change the output impedance, step downwards, step upwards, and see how the sound of the headphone changes. And by doing this stepwise and listening, you can really find that spot where your headphone really gives the best performance. Generally speaking, you can say that if you go to higher impedances, the sound will get a little bit warmer. And if you go to lower output impedance, the headphone will be better controlled, giving a better controlled bass response, but sometimes giving a little bit harshness in the sound. So by just changing the output impedance, you can really fine-tune the sound which you get from your headphone.
For me, there was, coming from a streaming background, do you think there's a possibility that you might, as an update or a future model, include streaming? So maybe you could make it a Roon endpoint or something like that, so streaming is built in?
We decided not to integrate a streamer in this product, but we have in mind to develop a streamer as an accessory for this headphone amplifier. And in fact, we are just at this moment developing this device, so that when you combine this streaming device plus the D2A converter, then you have a perfect little system.
Just going back to the headphones, one of the things that I noticed when I came to the factory was that your service department was looking after equipment that was perhaps 20 or 25 years old that people had returned for service. So I think, you know, one of the things that we can say about T+A is that if you invest in a T+A product, you've got the knowledge that the care that's been there in building the product goes on afterwards. So if somebody wants to return their headphones for perhaps cleaning or servicing, that's something that you'll look after?
Yes, of course. We see the investment into a T+A product as an investment for a lifetime. So we are very proud to say that we can still repair every T+A device which was ever produced. So even, let's say, CD players, which we produced in the early 80s, they can still be repaired. We have every spare part in our stock, and there's not one T+A device up to now which we weren't able to repair. So this is something which we think is very important. If you invest a lot of money, you should have the security that this product will be able to live and to be repaired for decades. And this is what we try to do at T+A.
Fantastic. Lothar, thank you very much. That's great. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I too have been quite impressed by the process of having separate DSD and PCM processing chains. I mean, you look at it and you think, well, that seems overkill, but it does seem to work exceptionally well. So it almost certainly isn't. So yeah, I mean, it's not a product that I've yet spent any time with. We'll see how that goes in the future. But if put it this way, if they're anything like as fastidiously done as the headphones, I can't imagine for a second that it's anything other than extremely impressive. This
is T+A's first headphone product that's been brought to the marketplace. Are you planning to bring out some more products, perhaps slightly less expensive?
Well, Steve, first of all, thanks so much for having us. We really appreciate being on your show. To come back to your question, when we started making the Solitaire P and started with development, we've set up an entire headphone division immediately because we just don't believe in a one-off product. And actually, as we speak, our team is looking into new products now, and we want to explore different systems, dynamic systems, electrostatic systems, and actually maybe we'll even do something for the road that you can take with you someday. And the Solitaire P really served as our kind of lighthouse product from which we can then go down the ladder price-wise, but also we can go up the ladder with some more products. So there is a lot to come, and I hope you all stay tuned for that.
So, Ed, it looks like we might be reviewing some more expensive versions of the...
Well, that's going to be quite something. But, I mean, I agree with the model, though. If you are starting fresh in a category, I've long felt that top-down is a more effective way of doing things than bottom up, insofar as this is a far more significant statement of intent. It shows the philosophies, the design practices, and you can then point to this excellent £5,000 pair of headphones and say, we've taken as much as we can and we've brought that down to different price points. And it's an easier thing to convince people to look at a new range of product that way round than it is to go the other way. I mean, some of that is not necessarily fair on the companies that do it that way. I mean, there are perfectly logical reasons for going in both directions, but I always feel, I mean, it's been years since I've sold things, and I wasn't terribly good even when I did, but nevertheless, I've always felt it was easier to say to a customer, well, this is the pair at, say for the sake of argument, £600, and you can see that there are elements of this which are in this £5,000 design. They know what they're talking about. This hasn't been pulled out of a hat, and I think that makes sense. And if all of the future models are as remotely as fastidiously assembled and designed as these are, I can't see them being anything other than pretty good. So looking forward to it.
Great, thanks, Ed. Well, I think what I'll do is I'll leave you to go and listen to your guilty pleasures. I'll do the same. And my thanks to Conradin and Max and Lothar at T+A for joining us and giving us all of the technical information about the headphones. And Ed, my thanks to you as ever for giving us your thoughts on the sound and build quality, and I guess we'll be seeing your review at some point, hopefully in the not too distant future.
Yeah, well, it's not too far away. We'll get something out and into print.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Well, that's about all we've got time for this evening. Thank you for watching. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. If you'd like any information about the products that we've reviewed this evening, you can visit our website ultimate-stream.live. Please do get in touch if you'd like to audition any products, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.